Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our exciting series focusing on the natural health and organic industry. I'm very excited to have today Carolyn from the Organic Council, the Organic Council of Ontario. We're going to have a great chat.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, how are you? How are you?
Good.
We finally got this done. Okay?
Yeah, we're getting there.
So I want to talk about Carolyn. She's the CEO of the Organic Council of Ontario. She's an organically trained inspector, and a single mom, and very passionate about sustainable agriculture, a master's in environmental studies, focusing on research in the farmers market. Welcome, Carolyn. And me, I'm Bruce Singer, President and CEO of Canada CFOs, and we provide CFOs part-time and contract to the community. We do a lot of work in the natural food space and CPG. And this is great. And I invited Carolyn to be my guest because I'm also a proud member of the Ontario on the Organic Council. And I attended about a few weeks back the AGM, and there was some great information. So Carolyn has accepted the invite to come here and talk about what's going on. So first, can you tell us about the Organic Council, the mission? Tell us a bit about it.
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. The Organic Council of Ontario is an association that is basically the voice for organics in Ontario. And we represent over 1,400 certified organic operators everywhere from fork to plate. So mostly organic producers and value chain members along the food chain. So things that we do, we are really about seeing, we have a vision of thriving organic industry in Ontario. So specifically focused on growing the Ontario organic supply and quality there. We do that through a number of methods: training, research, education, promotion. We do work to improve the organic standards and the integrity of the certification system as well. So a lot of the work we've done recently has been focusing on trying to gather data, because there isn't a lot out there. And the report that I'll talk to is specific to that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, so we're going to get into the report, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, first I believe I have to make you a co-host. To do it, make you co-host, which is now done. And I believe you can now share your screen, because there is some data you'd like to present and share. Are you okay sharing the screen now?
Yep, I'm just getting to it here.
Wonderful.
So I'm just going to keep it in this format for now so that we can skip through slides a bit. It's a longer presentation.
Perfect.
The 2021 Ontario Organic Market Report, this was done in partnership with the Canada Organic Trade Association. They hired Nielsen and Leger, some of the bigger named third-party researchers to conduct market research on the organic sector's behalf, and we worked with CODA to get an Ontario-specific version of that report. So just, I don't know if you have a couple questions you want to start off with, but just as a really quick overview, this is the number of...
What do you think would be most important to the audience?
So I'm not going to go through everything. Some of the highlights from the report, just I wanted to give a little background first, was that we have about 1,400 operators, and that means around 926 farmers in the province and 491 processors. So we have a lot of processors. That equates to about 179,000 acres. The report has both the production side of things, so what's happening in terms of what we're growing and what we're producing in Ontario, but also at the market side of things. So probably your listeners are most interested in the market side of things, and I think some of one of the really interesting highlights for the market report is that Ontario is one of the biggest, we are the largest market in Canada, but we also have sort of a higher percentage of organic shoppers. So weekly organic shoppers, that's 71% in Ontario versus the national average is around 64%. So we're definitely higher than average in Canada. And also you can see that in the chart in this image here, that's been growing since 2016. Other provinces like Quebec and BC are big producers. BC is also a big per capita consumer, but Quebec, even though they produce more organic, are actually a lower per capita consumer of organic products. So yeah, so I don't know if that's I think that's an interesting fact for most people. And you can actually even break that out into what we're calling heavy, medium, and light buyers. So heavy being 25% or more of their grocery budget. Ontario actually has more heavy buyers than the average in Canada as well. So, but if you look at, there's an interesting shot here that I can get into. If you look at the population compared to organic consumption, we're actually kind of on par compared to some of, in terms of percentage or market share. We're right on par with our population, whereas provinces like BC have a lower share of the national population, but a higher share of the organic market. And like I mentioned, Quebec actually has a lower share of the organic market compared to the population. And the Maritimes is actually doing pretty well in that regard too. They have a higher share of organic market compared to their population. Sorry, opposite is true, that they have a lower share. So Alberta and BC are the ones that are higher.
Okay.
So yeah, so those are some high level stats. So Ontario is pretty high in terms of our market share, and our growth of population is being kind of met with that growth in market share in the organic side of things. And, we can do there's a couple of interesting facts here. For example, when we compare to Canada, Ontario has a much higher organic sales in the online retail setting, and lower amount of direct from farmers. And I think this might actually have something to do with the certification element, because in Ontario, we don't have an organic regulation. So it's still voluntary to be certified if you call yourself organic, if you're just selling within the province. So that means there's probably a lot of farmers out there who are doing direct sales who are not certified. So that might have an impact there.
You mean calling themselves organic, referring?
So there might be, there's a lot of farmers in Ontario who don't certify, who consider themselves organic, whether they are or they aren't. And so they may be doing a lot of direct sales and not be certified. And I don't know if that plays into this survey much or not, but it was an interesting difference between Canada and Ontario. Definitely that we have more online retailers selling organic is, I think, a growing trend.
I think it is a growing trend, because I get notifications, emails, and I noticed too on LinkedIn, there seems to be a lot more of these organic producers coming up, and also in the meat area too. It's expanding into other areas, which is interesting.
For sure. Yeah. So another thing to note is just what are the top motivations for people who are, purchasing organic? Here in Ontario, the top motivations, or in general, are that they're wanting to avoid processed or artificial ingredients, avoiding pesticides and other chemicals, and supporting environmental health. And some of the barriers are obviously cost. And then an interesting one is that this was much lower down, is that people consider local to be somewhat equivalent to organic. But I don't think that is a very major area. So some other things that might be interesting to your crowd or to your viewers are that, in where the biggest growth rate is happening. In Ontario, we know that sort of fresh vegetables and dairy are big categories, but the sort of prepackaged grocery products and fresh vegetables are seeing sort of the highest growth rate. We also have seen a 3.4% increase in total tracked organic products. So I think that's a pretty significant increase. And again, I think I just mentioned fresh fruit and milk tend to be the highest value in sales. But baby food is another big seller. Fresh meat, poultry, and seafood are also up there. And we have seen a larger growth in meat and poultry recently.
The baby food is very interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that's really up there. What is it, 33 million or something?
Yeah. So the baby
Wow.
food, let me just pull that up again. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I mean, it's
So
great
yeah,
to see that.
33 million Canadian. And that's I think the amount that's being sold in Ontario. So that's a pretty high price. I think you'll see, like, if you go to the grocery store, you go to Shoppers Drug Mart, those are widely available, those little organic packages.
Yeah.
So that's just an indication. I think that, a lot of parents like myself are concerned about the health of their young kids.
Well, of course, if you start young, because
Mm-hmm.
when we were younger, I don't think it was like that. It was just like, give them anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really something. Actually, that's good. That's great to see that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I think that's really that's a big step in the right direction for the new generation.
Yeah.
In my
Well, there's also a
opinion.
concern about exposure to toxins. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing, because I think you can impact young children more than
Cool.
adults.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a few other, really, we did a couple of audience polls in this presentation, but some of the questions that you don't necessarily think of right away are just what are the biggest imports? Most people would think of coffee and bananas and other kinds of, so I'm just going to hide these comments quickly. Coffee and bananas, maple syrup, or coffee, bananas, and avocados, let's say, as your biggest imports. But no, actually, our biggest imports in Ontario are spinach, strawberries, and lettuce.
Wow.
But the imports to Canada are unroasted coffee, banana, and olive oil. So in Ontario, for some reason, that's a bit different. And there is the possibility that because we are a center point for importing for the country, that might be skewed. But I thought that was really interesting. These are things that we can grow here.
Do we have stats? Did we do anything on exports with Ontario exports?
Yeah. So in exports, interestingly, the top exports from Ontario are soybeans, roasted coffee, and corn. So while we import lots of coffee, we actually export lots of roasted coffee. So it means we're doing a lot of roasting here, probably.
Got it. Yeah.
These are, you have to take into account, though, that these are all based on what we actually know. We don't have a lot of codes that are tracking imports. I think there's about 60 now, and exports is also only 17 that are actually tracked. So these are of the things that we actually track that we can say what the top exports are. But yeah, there is a bit of a gap, especially in Ontario. Actually, just flip back to one of the earlier slides that I skipped over. You can see this between 2017 and 2019. The difference between imports and exports based on what's tracked in organic was, almost $1 billion. So it's an interesting, place to be in terms of our trade gap. But it's also not, some of the provinces are actually coming out above the line. No, Saskatchewan, obviously, there's a lot of organic grains being exported, but Ontario is definitely seeing the highest deficit in terms of trade.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions you'd like me to answer?
No, I just want to get a gist of it, just the gist of it. But I do have a question based on what you know in these numbers. How do you if you look into the future of some of these numbers, how would you see this? What does the future look like if you in your own opinion?
My opinion, yeah. I mean, I think that the growth of online sales is not going to go away. And we know that Amazon was recently, not too long ago, purchased Whole Foods. There's a growth in the more decentralized online retail, which I think is really good. But I think more and more we're going to see organic foods in the online space, especially since there's more and more prepackaged goods that are out there. But I also hope that because of the pandemic, there has been this aha moment, I think, for a lot of Ontarians and Canadians to realize, oh yeah, we depend on other countries for food. And isn't it, when we have the capacity to grow a lot here, doesn't it make sense to support local and organic? And I think you could also look at the trends in the larger, retail and also fast food industry. There's a trend towards healthier, more clean food. I do think that there's a lot of movement in this regenerative space. So a lot of PepsiCo, McCain's, General Mills have all made some serious commitments to what they're calling regenerative agriculture and commitments to net zero. Whether or not that plays into organic is a question that remains. I think as people explore what they are looking for in terms of clean, what they're looking for in terms of regenerative and climate friendly foods, I think they will start to realize how important organic is. And even though it is more expensive, that's a lot of those costs that are being externalized in agriculture are being internalized in organic. So I do see continued growth. I think what that means for organic is there's going to be more and more larger companies and players involved, and more concentration in the space, for better or for worse. And I think that hopefully we can continue to generate sort of that innovation and entrepreneurship with new products coming forward to continue to grow in the local and in organic.
That's wonderful. You mentioned something. I'm curious if you can comment on it. You just mentioned about sustainability before, or the carbon footprint. The organic growth, can you talk about that? Like the benefits, like some of the environmental benefits of eating organic.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the practices that we associate with better soil health and so many things that happen that we associate with GHGs are also about the soil. So we know, for example, there's a 4-in-1 initiative in France that sort of acknowledges that for every centimeter of additional soil that we grow, we can really have an impact on the climate and the greenhouse gases that we emit. We can really restore that by sequestering carbon in the soil. It's a bit more, it's very complicated. But in organic, there's not a lot of prescription for how to do this, but there is a lot of the organic principles, and a lot of organic farmers practice things like more diversified rotations. They use cover crops because they have limited tools. They have limited capacity to use fertilizer. And in our current context, a lot of synthetic fertilizers the prices are going up, because a lot of them are imported from Russia and the Ukraine. And I think what we're going to find is that more and more conventional farmers are going to start to turn towards some of those practices as well, because they have to. But our organic farmers are often on the leading edge of those practices because they've been doing it for so long.
Wow.
So things like diversified crop rotations, cover cropping, rotational grazing, those are all things that are kind of embedded in the organic community, and often have an impact in terms of soil health and carbon sequestration. But it's hard to paint with a big, paintbrush and wide strokes. Every farm is different, and every organic farmer does things differently, just like all farmers do. So what we have are the Canadian organic standards, and we have the principles of organic that help to guide us in that direction. There are some really good studies out there that show the soil organic carbon, soil organic matter increasing as a result of organic farming, but there's more work to be done for sure.
Yeah, I want to make one comment, and I ask you a couple quick questions. We're almost coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I know you said people's perception, I think it was 77% of people don't buy organic because they think the price differential. Price. But I tell you, I go out to some stores, and in some cases, it's so small. It really isn't. It really isn't. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think
is there a need to do a better job of marketing? There is a differential, but I've noticed that I've gone some places, and the prices are very reasonable.
Yeah. I think it depends on the product. I mean, with the organic, a lot of the price differential has to do with supply and demand through the value chain. So people often look to certification as the reason why organic products are so expensive, but it's really less than 1% of the cost. a lot of the additional costs that come from the organic products have to do with those externalized costs, and a smaller, it's just a smaller industry. It's much smaller. So those economies of scale that you would get with the larger industry, you don't have them necessarily in organic. And as it's growing, as it's being adopted by larger and larger companies, and there's more concentration within the industry, you'll likely see those prices come down, provided that there is, I think we're always in organic, there's always this push for the pull from the demand. There's always more demand than there is supply, which is part of the reason why the costs are there. And also, like, we would like to see, I think, as an industry, that it be more available to people, but we're also always pushing that barrier to, we want the standards to mean something, to be valuable. And as the industry grows, the standards may get more rigorous or more meaningful, or there might be more standards out there because you can only create a standard based on the reality. And so, for example, like, there's some things that have been in the standards because farmers couldn't make it happen. For example, getting manure, accessing organic manure is just nearly impossible. And so farmers can use non-organic manure, provided certain restrictions. Yeah. That, over time, that may change depending on what's available, because as there are more and more farmers in the organic industry, there may be more availability of organic seed, of organic inputs, and things like that.
Well, I'm a big fan because I eat a lot of organic now, especially fruits and vegetables. Like sometimes you just can't get them. I mean, but in my own pantry, I'm probably about at least 75% or more of organic. Especially all my greens are organic, and I have bad allergies, and maybe it's organic, but I've noticed a difference since I started on this trend. And I'm talking about not in a week. I'm doing it for a couple of years now, especially during COVID. There's one place I go and get all my stuff, and I've noticed my asthma's gone down, my breathing is better, my allergies are better, my sinuses are better. And I mean, I'm doing other things too, but I'm wondering, I bet you that eating organic like that has had a positive effect. I'm talking to me personally, has had a positive effect, Anyways.
We definitely get stories. I one thing I've been wanting to do as part of what this organization is to have sort of an Eater's Digest to hear those stories from people of what they've experienced, as we definitely get them every once in a while. Like, I can only eat organic bananas, or because it made me sick to eat regular bananas, or
I'm positive about that, because I've had a much better allergy season this year than the last couple of years, and I'm sure of it. Anyways, I'm gonna tell everybody, I think your organization is amazing. I think you're amazing. Okay,
thank you.
And I'm going to tell everybody, by the way, if they want to get this report, do they have to, how do they, is it a cost? There's a cost to access this report?
There's a small cost we have different costs associated with membership and non-membership. So it's very nominal for members. So definitely become a member, and then you can get the report at a smaller cost, but it's all available on our website, www.organiccouncil.ca. And we do have a blog post that summarizes some of the information. So you don't have to go through, the whole report if you don't want to.
Wonderful. And I'm going to tell everybody, I joined. It's very inexpensive. And if you like organic in Ontario, get with the program, just join, support them. They do a wonderful job. I get a lot of material, a lot of education. It's really a fabulous organization. And if I'm not even going to tell you over the phone what it cost me to join, but frankly, it's nothing. Okay. It's like, it's worth every penny. And I encourage everybody to sign up and really, like I said, get with the program, because the future is this is the way it's going. It's about sustainability, organic, and it is. The trends show it, the numbers show it. Thank you so much for being my guest today on this show.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you for bearing with me.
Oh yeah, all good. I won't cut it out. Just that we're normal here. It's normal. And we were a little over the 15 minutes. I think it was worth it. And I thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ken.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.